Univision Unews for Tuesday, May 19th. I'm Lorraine, Caceres. We begin today with a grim milestone. In just 102 days, more than 90,000 people in the U.S. have died from the coronavirus. That's the latest update from John. Now to President Trump's surprise public announcement. He says he's been taking the anti-malaria drug hydroxychloroquine as a preventative measure. The news has drawn immediate criticism from many health experts who warn against potential dangers and side effects. Lorraine has the latest.
Moderna will now head into phase 2 of its vaccine trial, testing about 600 patients. Phase 3 is expected to start in July, testing as many as 10,000 people. In Miami, Florida, Andrea Linares, Unews.
Thank you, Andrea. And meanwhile, another controversy for the president, Trump defending Secretary of State Mike Pompeo against allegations he had staffers watching. For millions and millions of residents, it's now back to work across the country. Some businesses taking social distancing practices seriously, but many wondering if precautions will be enough to prevent a second wave. Many states are actively hiring contact tracers. California, for example, is increasing hires from 3,000 to about 13,000 by the end of this month. Now to the latest on kids and COVID-19. New cases are being reported of a dangerous inflammatory syndrome, which the CDC has now linked to coronavirus. Janelle Delis has the latest. And joining me now to discuss this condition is Dr. Carlos Oliveira. He's an assistant professor of pediatric infectious diseases at Yale University School of Medicine. Doctor, as we just heard, cases are growing across the U.S. What are you seeing? This morning, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and Fed Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell testifying during a Senate Banking Committee hearing where they were pressed on the massive coronavirus stimulus programs they oversee. Claudio Seda has the details from Washington, D.C.
Good afternoon from Washington. Both Powell and Mnuchin were grilled by Democrats and Republicans at the hearing, both in a time when there is more pressure for another relief package, but nobody knows when is that coming. Now, back to you.
Thank you, Claudio Seda, reporting from Washington, D.C. And Senator Marco Rubio is taking the reins over the Senate Intelligence Committee. The Florida Republican will become acting chairman of the influential committee Tuesday. And we have a lot more still. The Navajo Nation has surpassed New York as the country's most infected area per capita, but the nation, which spans parts of Arizona, Utah, and New Mexico, is sparsely populated and has one of the strictest stay-at-home orders in the U.S. So what's behind the infections? Rafael Rodriguez explains. And thousands of young men and women around the world are signing up to get infected with COVID-19 in the name of science. Nayeli Chavez-Geller spoke to one of the potential participants in this controversial and risky project, hoping to accelerate the path to a vaccine.
Coronavirus is also posing a threat to the survival of thousands of businesses in cities like New York, still shut down due to the pandemic. As of this week, contact tracers will be working in the fight against the virus. A measure, according to the governor, is necessary in order to reopen the city.
Looking around the country, Louisiana's Department of Health has released new information showing how many people living in nursing homes have become infected. Now to Illinois, where 59,000 Ford factory workers, roughly 80% of the workforce, have returned this week. Shane Rodriguez reports on employees' first day back on the job. A tsunami in Alaska when we were... And researchers are warning of a potential tsunami in Alaska in a few decades. They say a melting glacier may and search teams in California are looking for a man believed to be a former World Wrestling Entertainment star. 39-year-old Shad Gaspard disappeared while swimming with his son off the coast of Los Angeles Sunday. Yanni Aponte has details on the efforts to track them down. COVID-19 deaths growing at an alarm. Deaths from COVID-19 surpassed 30,000 in Latin America on Monday. According to Johns Hopkins University, so far Brazil has more deaths from the virus. The number of confirmed coronavirus cases in Mexico continues to rise amid reports that the real number of cases far exceeds what the federal government is reporting. But as Carla Rivera explains, what can't be disputed is the overwhelming burden the country's death toll is putting on the nation's morgues and crematoriums.
At the moment, we don't know how many people have died from coronavirus in Mexico and in the world. But Dr. Macias believes that we will know that number in the coming months thanks to excess mortality.
Are you worried about taxes on your federal pandemic wreaks havoc on the finances of millions of Americans? The federal government's mortgage relief plan has not been the relief that many expected. As Liliana Escalante explains, for those who have mortgages with private banks, their options for negotiation are minimal. And billions of federal coronavirus relief dollars are going straight to Americans, but will they have to send some of that money back to Uncle Sam at tax time? Azul Alvarez has some answers. Now let's go to Carolina Sarasa for a preview of stories coming up in the next hour of Unews. Caro, what do you have for us today? So nice to have you back.
Thank you, Lorraine. A lot more info coming up in minutes. Very happy to be back. And we have the latest on the link between Al-Qaeda and a shooting on a military base in Florida. Find out what the FBI is now saying. We also have shocking video of a car flying through a backyard. The homeowner and his neighbor saying this is not the first time something like this has happened. And a critical tool in the fight against coronavirus now running low here in the U.S. The latest on panic buying and how to stay ahead coming up next. Lorraine, back to you.
Thank you, Caro. But first, the story of the creative high school senior making. Welcome back to Unews. While most graduates might be taking this time to relax or think about their next move, one high school senior isn't wasting any time. The Colorado student used his quarantine to create a clothing line that benefits those in need. Mariti Marungi has the story. Great motivation from a young man that certainly has a great future ahead. And that does it for the first hour of Unews. But stay with us because Carolina Sarasa has much more straight ahead, so don't go away.